The drama of the one-button rotation. That's right. WoW is over. WoW is done. Everything's falling apart. We have entered the era of the one-button pressers. Brain-dead game. Kill WoW, take it behind a barn, and shoot it. The drama of the one-button issue has been unbelievable, to me at least. I believe that the one-button thing is not going to be a real issue. It's for the bottom of the bottom feeders who just want to play this game and not think at all. It's never going to be viable in terms of rating or anything else, but we finally have the numbers. Here they are. One-button rotation DPS test. The one-button rotation, which gains the most damage in terms of classes, and 11.1.7 while using the one-button rotation. Let's see what Dalaran Gaming can show us about how the damage output is while you click one button with your PP.
Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal, and a brand new feature came out to the patch 11.1.7 PTR, a controversial new feature that basically allows you to press a single button while executing a class's full rotation with the one button assistant. While definitely a very radical new change, many players have recently been wondering just how good is this button. And while Blizzard does claim that it's technically not something that should give you a competitive advantage, I still did want to put it to a test.
Yeah, I want to see what
the
these numbers
rotation
look like.
assistant in order to have a bit of a DPS race amongst all the different DPS specs.
I mean, so Blizzard's introducing two things here. They got the rotation assistant, which is heckily. It shows you which button to click next. And then the one button rotation, which is right here on his screen, literally clicks that button that it's suggesting automatically. Now there's a cooldown on this, a global cooldown, so you can't just keep clicking it rapidly. There is time that needs to be waited before you can click it again, which is why this thing's never going to actually be a top-end DPS rotator. But it is being introduced. So let's see how it pans out.
War with an expansion, and where essentially I'll let it play out the entire rotation, both for single target as well as AoE, and supplement some of its damage through manual use of cooldowns, since the button cannot do that, in order to try to compare and contrast our classes to find out which one would technically be the best. If you were to just spam a single button to play your rotation for you, to find out if any class is actually getting some sort of a competitive advantage just by pressing this new button heading into the patch 11.1.7. Definitely not a serious video. Like I said, they don't really want this.
So I think he mentioned it already. I don't believe this thing's going to pop trinkets or other cooldowns like that. So you're still going to have to at least maybe click 2 or 3 buttons. I mean, isn't that what marksmanship hunters do already? Oh, shots fired. I'm sorry. The thing is, this one button rotation, you're still going to have to do a few other things to pump out some decent damage. But even with that, you're just not going to pump out what somebody who's manually doing the rotation is going to do.
To be competitive, but I was actually surprised by the performance of some of the different classes, and even got some of the charts to show you and compare some of the different results that I've been able to see so far. And overall, I kind of just want to dive into this experiment immediately. But right before that, if you guys want to see more regular updates...
Wait a minute, he's doing 1.28 million. What's he running right now? Frost DK? Oh shit. We're done, boys. Close it down. Game's over.
It's for the War with an Expansion. Be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. But otherwise,
I still think you can do way more if you're doing it manually.
Now, before we get into the footage, I did want to make some rules for the DPS test just to make sure that everything is kind of like, standardized as best as possible. So the duration I decided to go with for boss damage and AoE damage using Dungeon Slice, which is what usually players use when it comes to trying to figure out their damage in dungeons.
By the way, Blizzard did say that the one-button rotation helper and the heckily add-in will consider whether or not you are fighting multiple targets or a single target when assisting you with the rotation. So it's cool that he's testing both.
Damage you will spend, how much time you'll spend DPS on a boss or trash packs. Technically, the longer you spend DPS on a train dummy, the more accurate the results are going to be. But imagine trying to do 6-minute runs on every single one of these characters. That would just be a little bit abysmal. So I decided to go down with a 2-minute boss duration and a 1-minute 30, which is where we could actually still see quite a bit of data deviation between spec to spec in terms of raw numbers and how well this auto rotation button even works. So we're going to be using those scenarios specifically, and I do want to try to run classes as natural as possible, so no flasks or any kind of enhancements. But first,
so you can actually see which button it's clicking here. When he clicks this, the green highlighted button is the button that it's trying to click.
Buffs are all okay, enchants and no bloodlust, just to make it as standardized as possible. I'm trying to keep these numbers as natural looking as I can, amping it up with a variety of different procs and a variety of different bonuses. I think would skew the numbers. I am still utilizing trinkets for classes that do use certain trinkets, since you can do
if you really want to go brain dead, probably the best way, it looks like he's using the candle trinket. I could see it proc right here. The little candle boy comes out right there. That's from what's it called? From Delves, that trinket's actually a pretty good one. If you're going to run the one button rotation helper, it's probably better to just run auto procking trinkets. So that way you don't even have to think about those. They'll just auto proc and you don't have to click them because the one button rotation helper is not going to do it.
I think would skew the numbers. I am still utilizing trinkets for classes that do use certain trinkets, since you can just buy them on the vendors. And I'm trying to standardize all the gear for every single one of the characters, keeping the item levels relatively close to each other. For the builds, I am utilizing the best Simmons single target pure builds, but also some of the more popular.
So I'm watching. This thing is considering, it's clearly considering that he's hitting multiple targets here. It's using Frost Storm, it's throwing out the big ball. So it's using his AoE abilities right now while he's fighting multiple targets.
I think plus variations for the AoE dungeons. So
again, just watch for the green highlights so you can see when it's
possible.
clicking.
Some of the side stuff, I did take me a couple of attempts because at some point I did find out that some of the dummies I was hitting actually take more damage than others in certain areas. So I actually had to go back and scrub a good bit of this footage. So as you're watching this, if you want to give this video some love, I would very, very much appreciate it, because I had to go and record at least half of this, and it took me a little bit of time. But without further ado, I am going to break this classes down in a chronological order, and then I got some charts at the end just so we can see the breakdown of all the different damage numbers at the tail end of the run, and as well as some of my thoughts regarding the one button rotation. But with that, however, let's actually dive into the actual DPS of every single one of the DPS classes.
I do wonder, okay, he's showing DPS, which is obviously the thing that everyone's wondering about, but I wonder, could this thing tank for you? Like, would it be able to know to hold aggro, to throw blood boils up, to throw, death and decay on the ground, taunt? Probably not. I think tanking would probably be even harder with this thing, but it is going to have a rotation helper. So we are going to have a rotation helper for tanking. So I'm assuming it's going to be able to. I just wonder how efficient it's going to be at tanking. Of course, you're wondering that. Of course. 1.3 million. $2.3 million on AoE. Are there any Frost DKs out there? I don't know if this is really good or not, but I'm gonna say in raid boss damage, 1.3 million would kind of put you in the middle of our raid right now. When the raid's not pumping really hard. Okay, Unholy. Let's see. Okay, that's low. I've seen Unholies pump out 2 mil damage. 3.2 on AoE. Eh. Okay, Havoc Demon Hunter, 1.3 million. 2.8. So far, all the classes he's shown in specs, they seem to be right around the same. 1.3 on single target, 2.5 to 2.8 on AoE. That Feral Druid, damn, pumping. So, I mean, what I'm starting to think here is I guess if you're really bad at your rotation, maybe this will help you. Because 1.5 million damage, it's not going to put you at the bottom of the raid right now. Feral is S tier. Yeah, it looks like Feral might have a decently simple rotation, and that's why it's doing so well. But 1.5 million damage is not too bad. Sam doesn't know what good DPS looks like. Maybe I don't. I'm a tank after all. But I will tell you, like, when I look at the charts, I know people... We got a lot of people now close to 2 million and above 2 million, like in that range. But what I'm saying is 1.5 million, you're not going to be at the bottom of the... Right now, I would say the bottom is like 1 million. If you're doing 1 million, you're towards the bottom of the raid. 1.5 is probably going to put you mid to lower up, ranking. Feral is tough. Is it? Well, this is doing decent with it. 1.5 million. Balance Druid 1.6. You're right, Kate. We have had people in the raid doing 600 to 800k. I know. I just consider those to be outliers, though. But yeah, I guess for those people, a single button rotation helper would be the way to go. I'd say the majority of the raid is doing better than this, though. Yeah, 1.1 million is kind of low. Beast Mastery Hunter, 1.2. Yeah, that's insanely bad. Yeah. Yeah, I could tell some of these just don't benefit as much from single button rotation helper as others do. That probably goes to the complexity of the rotation. Boss damage, 1.2 million. Also, I'd say probably the more reactive your rotation is, the less this is going to be optimal, because it's just a human's just going to react better to this, where you, as here you got a global cooldown, so it's going to have to wait to react. If you know the rotation. Survival also 1.3. I mean, what this is essentially going to do is raise the floor of damage, right? So you're not going to have the 800k guys anymore. You're going to have like 1.2 be the bottom, you know, the floor of what the raid is going to produce. Arcade Mage, let's see. Arcane's a pumper right now. Ooh, 1.3, that's low. Oh, Arcane Mage is pumping way harder than that right now. Yeah, that's a slow rotation. You can tell it's kind of slow. Fire Mage, let's see. 1.4. I bet some way or somehow they will make it do less than what is shown. Here's the thing. That's what I was saying too. Like, if anybody actually thinks that Blizzard wants this to be the way people raid, they're freaking insane. What Blizzard will do is, if this actually became the way people raided, they would just nerf the global cooldown on it. They would make the cooldown, extend it by whatever, 0.3 seconds, and that's going to lessen the DPS by a lot. So I don't think Blizzard will let this thing become the way you raid. They will tune it down if it does, in fact, become that way. So again, it's not something to really worry about. It's just going to raise the floor for the bottom tier players. Allow you to go chase a mount without thinking about it. You just go do your one-button rotation while you're running through Ice Crown Citadel. You know, something like that. Frost Mage, 1.6. Is that the highest we've seen so far? I think 1.6. Did we see anyone do 1.7 maybe? 1.6 I think is the highest I've seen. Windwalker Monk. This should be a complicated one. 1.3. Yeah. So nobody should be doing below 1 million DPS anymore once this goes live. What item level do you say all these classes work? I wonder what item level did he mention that in the beginning of the video? Probably not. I mean, I'm guessing he's at least heroic level item level. I guess that would affect this, but I'd assume he's probably heroic. He didn't mention it. No, he's probably heroic raiding level, heroic raid item level. 1.2 is about half. Yeah, okay, yeah, Rhett Pally, 1.2 million. Cadence, you were in here doing like 2.2 million yesterday, so that's way less. 2.4. I mean, I've seen plenty of Rhett Paladins hitting 2 million, so that's pretty low. Shadow Priest, 1.4. Yeah, the thing is, AoE damage is obviously going to be higher. You got multiple targets, but I'm looking at boss because we've been raiding so much on this stream. I can kind of gauge, okay, where these guys are supposed to be sitting. Ass Rogue, doing decent right now in the game. Boss, what? Oh, it's broken. Okay, it's broken. It doesn't work for them. Got it. So there's some problems. They're still tuning this thing. 90% of these are low? Yeah, I agree. Outlaw Rogue, 1.1 million. Yeah. Mind you, this is just somebody sitting still hitting this target dummy. We all know that our rotations change up as moments in the fight change. So if suddenly there's a part in the fight that it becomes more mobile, or you can preempt a move, right? You're gonna intuitively understand that that's what's about to happen. You'll change up your rotation the slightest way to maybe allow you to hit while you're moving, or to not pop certain cooldowns. That way they won't be wasted while you're moving. Like those things even more will add nuances and changes to your DPS. Whereas this single button, it's just gonna do whatever it thinks it should do next. It's not going to consider the next move of the boss. These are target dummies hitting, so the bosses aren't doing anything. Yep, exactly, Sylar. Training dummies are not an accurate gauge either. It's just a still target, a stagnant target. You don't have to do anything. Elemental Shaman, 1.5. Yeah, so we haven't seen anybody close to 2 mil yet on these. If we're talking just single target, it's gonna raise the floor, right? Like like what you're saying. It's just gonna help those people who really don't know what they're doing at 600k DPS right now. Handsman Shaman. Yeah, I mean, this could be a way for people to start using the Heckley add-in, you know, once it's in the game too. You know, you start with the single button rotation if you're a new player, figure it out what it's doing, and then kind of turn that off and just go with the rotation helper where you click it yourself, and then you kind of learn the muscle memory and you get better at your class. It could be used for learning for sure. Yeah, this for sure. This video took a long time for him to make. Good thing I could just be a degenerate and react to it and not have to put in the work. So Affliction 1.6, that's one of the higher ones we've seen. Not bad. Demo lock. Okay, so Demo locks looks like it's not working. Oh, either. It's not working at all. Destro, let's see. Not bad, 1.5. It doesn't build shards, 0 cast of Shadow Bolt. Yeah, it's just not, it's not good. It's not 100% optimal. And they're going to try to make it better, but at the end, it's just not going to be as good as someone who understands everything about their class. But supposedly this is the end of WoW, right? This is it. This is going to kill the game. Arms Warrior 1.6. I think can't even pop a trinket. He had to manually click that. Let's see how the furries are doing. And 1.6. I would say on the high end, what we're seeing so far is 1.6. On the low end, 1.2. Like, that seems to be where everyone's at in terms of single target boss damage.
Now, with that being said, we do have some final charts, and in pure single target, it looks like some of the caster specs did end up coming out on top. Really the ones that I think just have the easiest flow to get into. With Frost Mages getting additional haste, it does help bypass some of the limitations.
Yes, as I said, 1.6 I think was the highest we saw, and it looks like 4, but we got Boomy, Frost Mage, Affliction Warlock, Arms Warrior all sitting there at the 1.6 mark. And then on the low end, 1.2. Yeah, exactly. This is just what I said when I summarized this. Overall, yeah, the casters seem to be doing a little bit better. Arms Warrior probably the best of the melee. But is any of this for real? Like, is any of this really going to stack up when we're counting, like, looking at real damage? No.
Of the button, Boom Kid for the most part is
just raises the floor. That's what it's going to do.
And even if Affliction Warlock actually got a decent bit of damage, with Arms Warrior being a class that doesn't have too many buttons to work with, and a solid flow that doesn't really get bogged down too much, what felt like
this is DPS in millions. Really quick, let's pull this up since I've got it open already. What was this chart showing? Oh, this is a score. Okay, so it's 95th percentile. I was wondering if this was showing damage numbers, because this is your 95th percentile mythic raiders, how they're working out right now. Overall damage numbers, yeah, there's just scores here. They're not showing the actual numbers, interestingly enough. But still, I mean, looking here, I could tell you this is lower for sure.
However, the
It's definitely
lower
lower
classes,
than what
the more
they're- what
demanding
people
they
are
are in
pumping.
terms of higher APM, however, with things like Subtlety Rogues, Outlaw Rogues, even Retribution Paladins, and Hunters, the higher the APM required for those classes, the worse they end up doing. Except for Assassination and Demonology Warlock. Those two just could not function. For one reason, Assassination just kept using the poison knife throw ability instead of proper mutilates and single target. Like, the button has no idea what that ability even is. It doesn't know how to build
yeah, it's
combo
still
points.
broken in
And the
some of
same
these
goes for
specs, it
Demon
looks
Warlock.
like.
It just doesn't know what Shadow Bolt was. So this thing definitely needs to use a little bit of improvement. It also did some funky things like really poorly played around Devastation Evoker's empowerment ability, but the rest of the classes were somewhat decently close together in the ballpark. As for the AoE damage, however, Elemental Shaman really took off, and I think it comes down to the Ascendance procs, which grants you a ton of haste without even a Bloodlust, but also just the proc-based playstyle that comes with you being able to drop down Earthquakes and Chain
So for
Lightnings.
AoE damage, because I wasn't talking about it that much during it, it looks like it goes about 2.4 to 4.5 is the range here for AoE damage.
Something about the playstyle ended up working out for this button really well, even though it didn't play one of the talents correctly. It's Talent of Great Sundering. It wasn't actually using the Earth Shock or Airly Blast into the Earthquake combo. It was just throwing out natural Earthquakes. That is something that I could have adjusted myself in terms of like you remove a talent for something better, but I decided to see how well the button works, and it just was ignoring that part of the rotation completely. So it is actually losing some value, but still got really solid
Yeah, you
damage.
can affect the rotation by changing your spec. So maybe there's going to be some like meta specs just for single button gameplay, because the rotation helper considers what your spec is. So that could become a thing. Like, oh, if you're going to play the button single, this is the best spec to run. But right now, this thing looks like it's completely missing the ball on some of these some of the rotation abilities.
From there, though,
Or
classes
dropping
kind
the
of
ball,
do
I should
trickle
say.
down a little bit, and it does really come down to really falling off quite a decent bit with Havoc Demon Hunter, Desert Warlock, and then Beastmaster Hunter, Sub-Rogue, and Assassination pretty low down. Fire Mage and Frost Death Knight in particular actually had some of the worst performance overall, mostly because there are specs that require quite a decent
Where's
bit of
Frost DK?
of
Oh, it's
cooldown
right here. I didn't recognize because it's blue for some reason. I think he made a mistake there. But yeah, that's pretty damn low.
management, fast reaction speeds, and I feel like those two just ended up
Death
really
Knight
falling
requires
off
skill, so
quite
that makes
heavily.
sense.
Then we also have Demonology Warlock, and that one is again suffering yet again because the button just does not know how to build resources whatsoever. But with this little experiment out of the way, I do want to thank all of you guys so much for watching this video, and I hope you guys did enjoy it. I'll probably run this one back and maybe do a PvP variation, as it could be maybe quite a bit of fun to see which classes have the biggest burst. when
PvP
using
might
the
be kind of fun to
rotational
see.
button. If you did enjoy this video, however, or found it informative, go ahead and give it a like. It would very much appreciated. Also, join our Discord community to keep up with all the newest class changes, especially some of the new patch notes that are arriving very soon for the live realms, as well as any of the updates for the patch 11.1.7 over in the PTR. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.
No, just no. You don't want to see people single button PvPing out there? PvP with the PP? I don't know. Look, here's the thing. I think we can all but confirm that single button rotation is not going to be the way to raid. Okay, what it will do is, yeah, maybe those guys who are just completely lost, they just don't know how to run the rotation at all, the 600 to 800k DPS guys out there, this will help them potentially come into a raid. Put out, yeah, they're still going to be one of the lowest DPSs in the raid, but they're just going to be, you know, somewhat borderline respectable, that maybe they don't get kicked out, and then they could actually watch the rotation helper and then try to learn it themselves and then try to do it more optimally. But it's very clear and evident here, this is not the end of WoW. Single button rotation is not going to be the way to go. This is just a literal way to play the game in a brain dead way if you want to just do some open world content or something. But that's a nice video from Dalaran. I'm happy to see these numbers.